My name is Leilani Sato, and I am 35 years old. I live in Portland, Oregon, a city known for its rain, its bridges, and its weirdness, but for me, it has always been home. I grew up here, went to college here, and built my career here, and I love the way the city feels like a small town even though it's not. I work as a SEO copywriter and social media manager, which basically means I help companies get noticed online. I'm good at what I do, really good. I've always been the kind of person who pays attention to details, who follows through, who gets things done right and on time. I take pride in my work, and for a long time, that was enough. I had a small apartment with a view of the West Hills, a cat named Machi, and a life that felt steady and mine. That all changed when I took a job at a company called Bella Not Imports. Bella Not was supposed to be this fancy Italian import company with offices downtown, all sleek glass and modern furniture, and they hired me to handle their online presence. I was excited. It felt like a step up, a chance to work with a bigger brand to really make a mark. The interview went great. I met with the general manager, a guy named Marco, and his assistant, a younger man named Luca. They were both charming, full of smiles and promises about how I was going to help them grow, how this was just the beginning. They offered me the job on the spot, and I said yes. But there was a catch. They told me they wanted me to work as a freelancer, not a full-time employee. They said it would be better for me, more flexibility, more opportunities. They insisted I set up a business license, that I invoice them every month. I was hesitant. It sounded fishy. I'd heard stories about companies doing this to avoid paying benefits, to avoid following labor laws, but they were so convincing. Marco told me, "Don't worry, Leilani, this is how we do things here. You'll love the freedom, and you'll get so much exposure through us, you'll have clients lining up." So I agreed. I shouldn't have, but I did. I started working for Bella Not Imports, and from day one, it was clear I wasn't a freelancer. I had a set schedule, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. I worked exclusively for them. I had a desk in their office, I used their equipment, I reported directly to Marco and Luca. I was an employee in every way except on paper. And I did my job, I threw myself into it. I rewrote their website, I boosted their social media engagement, I brought in new customers. I was always on time, always met my deadlines, always went the extra mile. I got emails from customers praising my work, from Marco himself saying how valuable I was. For 7 months, I worked my tail off, and I started to notice things. Luca's girlfriend, Sophia, worked in the accounting department. She was terrible at her job. She'd mess up numbers, lose invoices, and then someone else would have to fix her mistakes. Marco had a mistress, Isabella, who worked in client relations. She was even worse. She'd be rude to clients, forget appointments, and then just shrug it off. They both got away with it because of who they were dating. It wasn't fair. Their incompetence meant more work for the rest of us. I tried to keep my head down, but I'm not the type to stay quiet when something's wrong. I'd point out mistakes, I'd ask questions. I didn't do it to be mean, I did it because the work mattered to me. I could tell it made them uncomfortable. Luca would get defensive. Marco would just change the subject. I didn't realize how much they resented me for it. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, Luca called me into his office. He didn't look me in the eye, he just said, "Leilani, your services are no longer required. Today is your last day." Just like that. No warning, no written notice, nothing. I was stunned. I felt like the air had been punched out of me. "Why?" I asked. "Is this because of my work? My performance has been excellent, you know that." He just shook his head. "It's not about performance. It's just not a good fit anymore. We're going in a different direction." I asked to speak to Marco. Luca said no, that Marco was busy and didn't want to see me. I knew right then it was because of Sophia and Isabella. I'd made them look bad, and now I was being punished for it. A cold anger settled in my stomach. I looked at Luca and I smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "This isn't over," I said. He looked nervous, his eyes darting around. "Are you threatening the company?" he asked, his voice shaky. "Threats are for people who aren't sure they'll win," I told him. "I'm making a promise. It's just a matter of time." I cleaned out my desk, my hands trembling with rage. I drove home in a daze, went into my apartment, and sat on the floor with Machi in my lap. I cried for a little while, feeling sorry for myself, feeling used and discarded. But that cold anger was still there, simmering. They thought they could just throw me away. They thought because I was a freelancer on paper, they could do whatever they wanted. They were wrong. I called a lawyer the next day. Her name was Anya Sharma, and she specialized in employment law. I told her everything. She listened carefully, and when I was done, she said, "Leilani, what they did is illegal. Misclassifying an employee as a freelancer is a serious violation. Firing you with no notice, no cause is illegal. We have a very strong case. So we started building that case. Anya sent a formal letter to Marco, outlining the violations and demanding a settlement. We waited. And then we got his response. It wasn't from his lawyer. It was from Marco himself, a long, rambling, furious email sent directly to Anya. It was full of insults. He called me difficult, arrogant, a troublemaker. He said I had a bad attitude, that I didn't know my place. He personally attacked me, my work ethic, my character. It was unprofessional, it was stupid, and it was perfect. Anya forwarded it to me with a single sentence. This is a gift. We had everything we needed now. The original contract, my invoices, my work logs showing my set hours, all the praise emails from customers and from Marco himself, and now this email, a direct admission of his bias and his unprofessionalism. For the next few months, I worked with Anya to compile everything. It was exhausting. It felt like I was reliving the betrayal every day, digging through old emails and documents. I had to fight off doubt, the fear that maybe I was just being petty, that maybe I should just let it go and move on. But I couldn't. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every person they'd exploited, every employee they'd treated like garbage. I was going to make them pay. We filed a formal complaint with the State Labor Board. It was a thick packet, over 200 pages of evidence. We filed it right before the Christmas holidays, a time when most businesses are slowing down, when people aren't paying attention. We thought it might take a while to get a response. We were wrong. Less than a week after we filed, Anya got a call. It was Bella Knott's lawyer. He wasn't calling to fight. He was calling to surrender. He said they wanted to settle to avoid going to court at all costs. He asked us to name a number. Anya and I talked about it. We could have asked for more, maybe pushed for a public trial to really shame them, but I was tired. I wanted it to be over. I wanted to be able to move on with my life. So we asked for a 5-figure sum, enough to cover my lost wages, the benefits I should have had, and then some for the sheer hassle and emotional distress. They agreed immediately. No negotiation, no arguments, they just said yes. The day of the settlement hearing was anticlimactic and perfect. We met in a small conference room at the courthouse. Marco and Luca were there with their lawyer. They wouldn't look at me. They looked pale, nervous. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman named Judge Evans, reviewed the settlement agreement. She looked over at me and Anya. "This is a remarkably well-documented case," she said. "You've done a thorough job." Then she turned to Marco and Luca. Her expression turned cold. "Mr. Rossi, Mr. Bianchi," she said, her voice firm. "Your conduct in this matter is appalling. Exploiting labor laws, retaliating against an employee for doing her job well. We see this kind of thing too often, and frankly, we're tired of it. Consider this a very expensive lesson. If I see you in my courtroom again for something like this, the consequences will be far more severe." Marco looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. Luca just stared at his hands. They signed the papers, and just like that, it was over. I walked out of that courthouse into the Portland drizzle, and I felt lighter than I had in months. The anger was gone, replaced by a quiet satisfaction. I had my revenge. It wasn't violent or dramatic. It was legal, it was clean, and it was devastating for them. A few weeks later, the money hit my bank account. It was a lot of money. Enough to take some time off to figure out what I wanted to do next. I heard through the grapevine, from a friend who still worked in the industry, that things at Bella Knott weren't going well. After my lawsuit, other employees started asking questions. A few of them lawyered up too. Sophia and Isabella were eventually let go, their protection gone. The company's reputation took a hit. They're still in business, but they're not the shining star they once were. As for me, I used part of the settlement money to start my own freelance business, for real this time. I'm careful about who I work with now. I have contracts, clear boundaries. I'm my own boss, and business is good, really good. It turns out doing good work and treating people fairly is a pretty good business model. Machi still sits in my lap while I work, and the view from my home office is pretty nice. I learned a lot from the whole mess. I learned to trust my instincts, to stand up for myself, and that sometimes the best revenge is just living well. But I also learned that sometimes you have to fight. You have to hold people accountable. And if you do it right, if you're smart and you're patient, you can win. You can make them pay. And that feels pretty good.